I think when things are unjust is when you get older, you start to get annoyed. You say, no, that's not fair. That's not correct. So, yeah, there was a couple of games where I thought, we won at Fulham 1-0. There was a banner, no Moyes out. This was 2 years ago. And I thought, my goodness, we just won here, and that was what it was. And, my history, and because I've been in football a long time like you boys, I can't really think of West Ham doing an awful lot better in my whole time. In my whole thoughts on football, over the years, I can think, might be relegation material, might be close to it, bottom of the league.
Grass is always greener on the other side.
Well, that's it. So the criticism, I don't know if there's MD who criticism doesn't hurt. We see it now, so much now. And actually, because I want to stick up a lot for managers, and you work in it, is there's loads of mental health issues now. Throughout life, and we have to respect all of them. But yet there seems to be a bit of a lack of respect that it's okay to say, by the way, phone in today and tell us why the manager of West Ham United should lose his job or do that. But yet we couldn't do that in any other walk of life. But it seems to be that that's okay to do that. Managers are fair game because they earn good money.
But it's a really good point.
So why should we be the focus of the criticism? Look, by the way, you've been players, didn't play well today, Gary Allen, you didn't score when you should have scored. We've all got that, and we can take that. The manager picked the wrong team, we can all take that, but there's bits of it gone to other levels now, what you're talking about. And I don't do social media, I don't listen, so I don't, but I get the feeling that most things from the newspapers are now getting picked up, and they're writing it. Wayne was unbelievable player, and Wayne obviously left. Wayne left at one point.
Was Wayne Rooney the best player you worked with? I mean, you were very young at the time. But
Wayne was unbelievable player, and just a something different, a complete throwback. Strong, fast, could play. And it was a bit like we were talking about managers. We were trying to introduce him slowly. Trying to get him in, and we're saying,
was it obvious from what age did you go, we've got this superstar kid?
Well, I have to be fair. When I got the job, I took off Walter Smith. And I went to Walter Smith's house the night before I was taking the job off him, because Walter Smith was a good friend. And he says, I'll tell you what, the one thing you've got is you've got a boy coming through in the academy, Wayne Rooney. And the usual, I've heard that before, lots of stories like that. But by the end of that season, they were playing, I think they're playing Tottenham Hotspur in the FA Youth Cup at Goodison. And I remember coming down and they'd finished, they'd won, and I saw Wayne was there, and I sort of said to him, I says, you'll be with me next season. And at that time, Wayne was, At that time, if you remember, Wayne wasn't a good speaker.
Right,
Didn't know, he was quite shy in everything he'd done. And actually, before the end of the season, I think we had him on the bench at Southampton. We had to get him out of school to put him on the bench at Southampton. But then, as he came on, he was just a monster. And actually, we went to Scotland in a pre-season friendly, and I can still remember it. And we went up to Scotland. We were playing Queen's Park at Hampden, because Queen's Park play at Hampden. And I'd brought a few friends to the game, and I said, we've got a young centre forward here. And I was saying, and he scored a hat-trick against Queen's Park, only a pre-season friend, but Wayne was 16. Yeah. And actually, it made me think at the time, I didn't know how many English centre forwards had scored a hat-trick at Hampden at that time. So he was a phenomenal. He really was. And I remember with this 8-a-side game going on, and I just remember all the staff were sort of dotted round, different parts, control, and the ball gone, and he chipped the goalkeeper. And it chipped the goalkeeper from an incredibly tight angle. And it was one of these moments where everybody sort of looked around and went, wait, did he mean that? Did he mean that? And they were, everybody looking at each other as if to say, not sure. He was
brilliant.
But he was also a bugger. Come
on, give us a story.
Can kick all the balls away in that, and kick the crossbar from the halfway line. But he was a street footballer. I saw him. He was one of the last, but certainly there wasn't many left after Wayne, that's for sure.
Was he difficult to coach, to manage, or?
Yeah, a little bit, because he was quite feisty. Even as a 16-year-old, he wanted to play, and he was.
It was throughout his career, wasn't it? Really? I mean, he had that edge to him, which you need probably.
He did,
as well.
and he was able. I remember, I think he came in one day, and we had a few, at the time, there was boxing bags in the fitness room or the gym, and the boys would be on the bags, and it was big dunk, and nobody could hear big dunk. But Wayne was saying, I'll take MD on with the gloves on and stuff like that. So Wayne was that type. So you meant that he could put him in against the men and he wouldn't be fazed by it. No, not really. No, I've always probably had the final decision, but I've got to say I've signed lots of bad players as well. But I always had a rule is if I've brought somebody in...
When do you realise, Dave, that it's bad? Is it training or...?
Yeah. Do you know something? Sometimes it's only a day or two. You all know. Sometimes a day. But I've got to say, there's players who'll come in who they'll take time. And you'll hear managers here saying, hey, by the way, they're going to take time to settle in the Premier League. But there'll be players who come in now and again and you go, oh my goodness, what have I done here? And I always had a rules, more when I was younger, to say, if I make a mistake, you accept your mistake and you move it on as quickly as you can. So if you've paid $5 million for somebody, you go to the chairman, and if you've got a good relationship, you'll say, look, I've messed up here. Yeah. Look, can we get $2 million back from him? Can we move on? And that was the way I always wanted to work.
You kept him in the division. Did you expect to be kept on?
Yeah, I did. I was having to find a way of coming back and prove myself again, and I needed somewhere to do it. And you're right, Sunderland, I didn't do it. We got relegated. I was really disappointed with that. Sociedad was slightly different, but that's another story. Yeah. But going on to West Ham. So when we got the job and we kept him up, and I remember we won it. We won at Leicester City. I think it was Lanzini and Noble scored against Leicester City. And I remember, and I went back home to my home up north, and we had the Sunday off. And I was walking around a call from David Sullivan, and I remember him saying to me, he says, David, we've got somebody else in mind. I thought, panic. And actually, our last game of the season was Everton at home. We still had Everton at home to play in the last game of the season. And we beat Everton as well. And we actually probably were safe by 4 or 5 points, I think, or more possibly. And I was amazed that actually the final game was obviously on the Sunday. And by the Monday morning, they said, no, David, we're going to go and take somebody else.
Well, this is what he said, and I wondered what reaction it invoked in you when he said it. I mean, because David can be clumsy. We feel that it's right to move in a different direction. We aim to appoint a high-calibre figure. So what does that make you then? Chopped liver?
Yeah, well, that's it. But you know what I do think about it is, see, when he came back for me, it maybe took two parties to say, he came back for me, and I thought, normally when you say those sort of things, you don't go back for the manager. Yeah. But something in there which made me think that he did. But the truth is, which is, I was in Germany agreeing to join Everton when David Sullivan contacted me the second time to become West Ham manager. And the only reason I didn't become the Everton manager then was because Carlo Ancelotti gets sacked, and the next day, the day before I had been with Everton and agreeing the deal, they took Carlo Ancelotti at the last minute, which left it open for me to go back to West Ham, or I would have been at Everton.
But a lot's made of West Ham and the way that they play, and this legacy going back to 1966 of who won the World Cup, their players. And Sam Allardyce coming up against that backdrop when he took them out of the Championship, when they got relegated, when they had all those players like Mascherano and Tevez that had been part of the side that left and they got relegated. Do you know what the West Ham way is, by the way?
No, it's funny you saying that. Last week I played in Sir Alex Ferguson Charity Day, and Sir Alex was telling me the story about John Lyall.
Yeah.
He was telling me the story about John Lyall, and he said, I went to John Lyall's funeral as well, and he was talking. He said that, John Lyall said, no, Sir Alex had said, what the West Ham way? What is it? He says, nobody ever knew what the West Ham way was, and I think today, and I've been the manager, I couldn't tell you what the West Ham way is. I don't think any of the generationally, obviously they're referring back to Bobby Moore, etc. in that era. So I think even John Lyall and Sir Alex couldn't work out what the West Ham was. Never mind all the other managers that have come between that. So yeah, you had that to live up to. But I agree. I think even my period in it, look, we're talking about, we've talked a lot here about our generation of football, and we've been in it for quite a few decades and through it. I can't really remember West Ham having a better period than what they've had in the last 3 or 4 years. I think West Ham will be bobbing round about the middle of the table. I think that would be probably what it is, and I do think that it's a club. To be fair, we've spent But you have to look at the money we've actually brought in. And we've just sold British record player. We can argue, I think he's worth 150 and Arsenal still owe me another 50.
Yeah.
Or you can say that, so for example, that in itself was an unbelievable deal. You know, and actually the players who we've brought in and moved on again. So recently we've had to do one or two, but we've got just about the value back for them. You know, it's not as if we've sort of let them go for nothing. So the money that West Ham have brought in on sales has been pretty good over the years as well, and well done by the club, I have to say. You know, it's they've done that, and that's allowing us to keep challenging the top teams. But if you said to me that after about to avoid relegation, that we were going to finish in Europe and finish sixth, you'd have said there's not a chance.
Is Wayne Rooney the best player you've ever coached in talent terms? And he was on here a few weeks ago. You're talking about he was setting fireworks off once and stuff like that. And
Wayne was at the training ground. It was the old one, and Wayne and Tommy Gravison would down the gym, and they had rockets and they were firing them at each other up one end.
Was that part
of the
training? That was just them
What do you
doing
mean
their
they're
own
firing
thing.
rockets to see if they can hit each
They were
other?
hitting the wall. They were hitting the wall, and the wall was going all black. You know, with it.
What, like a proper firework?
Oh, they were mad.
Crazy.
They were, but we had a few boys like that.
Did you forgive him because he might do the business outside? If that was any a lesser player, he's out the door.
I acted as if I didn't know it. Let somebody else deal with that, you know.
You'd be hitting a rocket on Saturday.
Then we're in cleaning the wall and stuff like that after, you know. But